Hi, today I'm starting a brand new series where I teach you how to make quick and easy paper crafts in about 10 minutes. My name is Claudette with theycallmemartha.com and welcome to my channel. If you're new here today and you're inspired by what I'm going to teach you, I would love for you to subscribe and to give me a thumbs up. It really does help me grow my channel and I really do appreciate your feedback. Today I'm going to teach you how to make faux wood grain paper using heavyweight white cardstock and Waverly Wax Paint. All right, so I'm going to bring in just a piece of scratch paper so that I don't get paint on my work surface here. And let me just say a little bit about working with this paint. One of the advantages that I found is that it doesn't dry out really quickly. So when you're working with it, you have plenty of time in your little paint cup to work with it before it dries out. And then I really liked how it left this kind of wax coating on the top of the paper as it dried. And I think that helped minimize or practically eliminate any kind of warping on the paper. It didn't saturate the paper like an acrylic paint or even a basic chalk paint would. And so that's why I found this technique to be really fun. I'm actually going to do both sides of this paper. And if you can imagine painting both sides of a piece of cardstock, it would more likely than not want to warp up on you like that. But I found this technique, it left it perfectly flat and ready to work with. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using just a basic 10-cent foam brush that you can get at any craft store, even the dollar store. And I've poured a little bit of this paint in a well, like just this happens to be some leftover packaging from one of the products that I bought recently. And I save those for when I'm painting so that I can just toss it when I'm done. So what we want to do is tap off the paint. You don't want to come in with a big loaded up brush of paint onto your paper. You do just kind of want to tap off on it so that you have paint on the brush, but it's not completely saturated. And then you want to choose which way you want your wood grain to go. If you want the wood grain to run the long end of the paper, then you want to make brush strokes in the long end of the paper. If you want to go left to right, more of the width of the paper, you want to keep those brush strokes going in that direction. So today I'm going to do this one where the brush strokes go the width of the paper, or the short width of the paper, I guess. And I'm just going to come in with a very light hand. Again, I've tapped off on a lot of that paint. And I'm just going to continue working the paint back and forth, making sure that I'm keeping my strokes going in the same direction. And you do want to come all the way off the edge of the paper, which is why I've got that piece of scratch paper underneath. And I'm just working the paint across. And you can come back in and get a little bit more paint if you want. And then also think about it in terms of like building layers on your paper here. So once this dries, if you come in with a second layer, you get a little bit more dimension in the stroke of your little foam brush here. So you can see I've only dabbed off once and I'm getting a lot of coverage. Knowing again, I'm going to come back and do another layer. Okay, so I'm just going to flip this around and continue on the other side. And then once this is dry, if you want to have a two-sided piece of paper, you can do the back side of the paper. Okay, so we finished with the first coat of paint. And because we use such a light hand, it's almost dry. So we can come back in with our second layer right away. And so I'm doing the same exact technique where I'm dipping into the paint and kind of dabbing off on it a little bit so that I don't have a whole lot of paint on my brush. And I'm just going to repeat that same process that we did the first go around. So you can see here is that it's adding more of that color to the paper. But what's really cool is it's also adding more dimension. So you can still see some of the strokes from the first layer that we painted on. And now we're adding new brush strokes almost on top of it. And I found that this really ends up looking a lot like wood. I came across this technique pretty much by accident. I was working with a piece of one-sided, like designer type cardstock that was quite pretty on one side, but the back side was white. And I didn't like that because the project I was using it for, you could see both sides of the paper. And so I thought, what can I do to the back side of that paper that isn't going to warp the paper or make the paper soft after it's dried? And I pulled out this wax paint and went to work. And within just like 30 seconds, I was sold. I was like, wow, this is perfect. I got the coverage I wanted. I got the dimension I wanted. And as an added bonus, it ended up looking like wood, which was pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the bottom part of this paper. And you can see here, it's already starting to look like wood. And also take note that my paper is not curling. Now granted, I'm using a really good quality heavy cardstock. I'm not using a flimsy piece of like copy paper, or even like something like a 65-pound paper would be, I think, too thin for this. I'm using a good quality heavy cardstock, but there is not 1 ounce of warping on this paper, which is, again, just an added benefit. So I now have 2 coats of the paint on the paper, and I'm going to let this dry. And what's really nice is you can come back in, as I said, and do the back. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside to dry. And then I already have one that I painted earlier, and I'm going to flip it over and do the back side of it the same way I did the front. All right, so I've painted both the front and back side of my paper with 2 coats of the Waverly Wax Paint. And I just wanted to give you a quick tip. If you're using like a heat gun or a drying tool, make sure that you're moving it very frequently over the paper and not holding it in one place too long. You are working with a wax-based paint here, and it will scorch if you dry it too hot or too fast. So this is ready. You know, once it's dry, you can use it for any of your projects, but I do want to give you one final tip to create an additional dimensional aspect to this paper if you want, totally optional, is you can add in wood planks. So all you need is a basic ruler and a very narrow paintbrush like this one. And I'm just loading up some of that same wax paint, and I'm lining up my ruler with the edge of the paper. And I'm just going to come in right along that edge and add that line using my paintbrush, which will become the plank. And it's almost as if it's adding like the shadow of a plank. It's not a perfect line. It's not as if like I took a Sharpie marker and dragged it across the ruler. I think that would look too perfect, but it's really more of like a rustic line that looks a little bit more natural, like a wood plank. And you just line up your ruler and continue down the paper, adding in those planks. And let me show you what that looks like on the opposite side that I've already done. You can see here where I've gone from the one length of the paper to the other, drawing in those planks. And I really like how it turned out. It makes it look even that much more like wood. So I hope you liked this quick and easy tutorial. I cannot stress to you enough how easy this is to do. I'm not an artist. I'm not a painter. I just like to play with paper, and it just so happens that, you know, what I did today worked out, and I wanted to share it with all of you because I did feel like it was so easy, and the result was just really great. So I hope you enjoy making this paper, and if you have any comments or questions, please do leave them for me, and I'll make sure I respond to those. If you like what I made today and you're inspired by it, please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I am working to grow my channel and add new tutorials and new videos for you, so I would love to hear from you.